In this video, we will show you how to replace your radiator. On this Ford Flex, this will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Let's make our way under the hood. On the passenger side of the engine compartment is where you're going to find your coolant reservoir. Go ahead and take that cap, turn it counterclockwise, and remove it. We'll give it a quick inspection and set that aside. Now we can make our way underneath the driver's side of the radiator. We're going to start draining this. To do that, you want to make sure you're wearing hand and eye protection at all times. Use a 19mm. We'll turn this counterclockwise just enough to let the coolant drain into a collection bucket. Along inside the bumper cover, you're going to find your fog lamp assemblies. You'll have one of these on each corner of the vehicle. Make your way to the electrical connector. Squeeze the locking tab and disconnect it. Once you have it disconnected, just go ahead and give it a quick inspection for corrosion. Set that aside. At this point, you want to do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle as well. Once you've disconnected both fog lamp assemblies, continue on along the wheel well. You're going to find that you have a push clip. Use a trim tool or a small prying device, carefully pull out the center to unlock it, and then you can remove the outer aspect. Now we'll do the same, making our way down along the bottom of the bumper cover. Now you can make your way out from underneath the vehicle, and we'll continue on into each one of the wheel wells. In this area, you're going to find that you have three 5.5mm screws holding the bumper cover to the inner fender well. Remove all three on this side, and then do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. Let's make our way under the hood and remove all of our 5.5mm screws that come across the front. Now let's continue a little bit further inboard. You're going to find that you have two 10mm headed bolts. You'll find one on each side. Remove the pair. Continuing further in, you'll find that you have two push clips, one on either side. Remove these by first removing the center and then the outer aspect. So you have that lifted up, that's unlocked. You can fully remove this. We'll just put those two together, make our way to the other one. Go ahead and grab onto that trim panel, lift it up, and remove it from the vehicle. We'll set that aside. Now let's start removing the center area of the grille. To do this, we'll use an angled trim tool. Carefully get under this area and gently pry it out of place. Make your way down the line. There we are. We'll have a look at the back side, and you can tell that we have several push clips that make their way across, and those fit into the front of the vehicle. Now, with that out of the way, if you were to look close to the headlight, still in the grille, you're going to find two more 10mm headed bolts, one on each side. Remove the pair. Now we can take hold of the grille assembly. What you're going to find is on each corner, there's going to be a push clip. So we'll just carefully get behind this area and gently give it a quick tug. We'll do the same on the other side. Remove the grille. Now looking in the center, along where your hood latch is, you're going to find that you have two more push clips. Do not remove these yet. Make your way to the corner of the bumper cover. Now we can grab onto the bumper cover right here and give this a little tug. We're trying to separate it from the fender. Let's make our way across up along here. Once you have one side separated, do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. Now we can make our way to those center push clips. As you remove these, keep in mind these are the last things holding the bumper cover to the vehicle. Take hold of the bumper cover and remove it from the vehicle. Now up inside the engine compartment, we're going to start removing the air filter housing and the air inlet tube. To do that, we can use an angled pick, and we're going to dislodge the wiring from the air filter housing. Once you have that separated, continue on to the mass airflow sensor. On this mass airflow sensor, along the bottom of it, you're going to find that you have a red locking tab. I'll show you that in 1 second. We'll just dislodge that, squeeze on the locking tab underneath here, and gently pull this out of place. That's the locking tab, and then after that I squeezed right in this black area. A quick inspection for corrosion and set that aside. Now we can make our way up that air inlet tube. We're going to disconnect this by grabbing onto this little gray lock. We'll give that a little tug and pull this off. You can set this aside. Continue following it up. You're going to find that you have a hose in this area. We'll just gently pry this out of place. Give it a quick squeeze, make sure it is soft and pliable and it's not torn, worn, or damaged. Continue on to your 8mm headed clamp that holds the air inlet to your throttle body. With that loose, we can give this a little tug to separate it from the throttle body. Underneath that area, you're going to find that you have 2 metal clips holding the top area of the air filter housing to the bottom. We'll pop both of those out of place. Go ahead and grab onto this and remove it from the vehicle. Now we can grab onto that air filter, pull it up and out of there. You want to give it a close inspection. If it looks like it has to be replaced, now's a perfect time to do that. We'll set this aside. Now we can remove this plastic panel. Underneath that, you'll find that you have 2 8mm headed bolts. Remove the pair. Now we can take hold of the air filter box. We're going to give it a little wiggle and lift it up and out of here. Follow the upper radiator hose to where it connects onto the radiator. In this area, you're going to find a clamp that you can squeeze with some hose clamp pliers or just some regular pliers. Once we give that a squeeze, we'll pull this hose off of the radiator. Give the end of the hose a quick inspection, make sure it's not torn or worn. If you see any cracks, you're going to want to replace this. Set this aside away from the radiator assembly. Now we can continue on with removing the fan. To do that, we'll start right up here at the hood cable. Just dislodge that. Now we can start dislodging the wiring harnesses from the fan assembly. We'll use a trim tool or a small prying device. Carefully get in between this area and gently separate it. Now as we move up along this area, you'll find that you have 2 clips. For these clips, you can use some pliers, squeeze in on the 2 ears, and gently pull this out of place. Now there is one more wire connector down along here, but we're going to pause in this area, make our way up the fan shroud, and you're going to find on each side of it you have an 8mm headed mounting bolt. Remove the pair. Now we can take hold of the fan assembly. We're going to give this a little tug straight up start pulling it away diagonally and start lifting it up to where we can gain access to our lower mounting point for the wiring harness and also the wire connector. Be careful for your hood release cable. Let's use our trim tool to remove that. Got another one right here. Now we can start removing our wire connector. The process for removing this will be the same as the other side. Right in the center where my thumb is, there's a small tab you can squeeze and gently pull this out of place. A quick check for corrosion. Make your way to the other side of the fan shroud. Now you can remove your fan assembly. Follow the radiator down to where it connects onto the lower radiator hose. On this, you'll find that you have another clamp. Go ahead and give that a quick squeeze with some pliers. Rotate the hose around and remove the hose from the lower aspect of the radiator. We'll check that one in the same way. Make sure it's soft and pliable and not torn or worn. Set that aside. Once you have that off, continue on to tightening the drain. We'll snug this up so the radiator does not continue leaking out. Now we're going to move along the outside area here. Just along where your headlamp assembly is, you're going to find that you have two locking tabs that protrude from the inside outward. Down along the bottom is where that lock is. So what you need to do is come underneath this area, gently pry this up a little bit, and while you're doing that, we'll make our way inside the engine compartment and remove this locking clip. We'll use our angled pick for this. Come right in this area and gently pry this out of place. At this point, you can reach in here and remove that locking clip. Once you have that out of place, continue on, do the same thing on the other side of the vehicle. With both of those clips out of there, we can maneuver around the radiator and the AC condenser at the same time. The next thing you want to do is remove the two bolts that hold the AC condenser to the radiator. On the driver's side, you'll find that it's an 8mm headed bolt. Over on the passenger side, it will be a 10mm headed bolt. Remove the pair. To access the passenger side bolt, we'll be using our trim tool. Come up along this area and remove this. Now we can have a look inside here. Use our 10mm on this one. Now that we have that loose, we can remove the 10mm headed bolt. There it is. Now we can grab onto this unit right across here, and we're going to pull it out of place. Up along the top, you'll find that there's a small hook. You can gently pry that. Just down below it, there's another hook that wraps around the AC condenser. Go ahead and give that a little tug, separate it, and you can swing it down and out of the way. Now with that out of the way, let's have a look at where the AC condenser connects to the radiator. You're going to find that you have a small hook on the radiator that holds the condenser in place. Go ahead and tip that radiator and AC condenser and lift up on the condenser itself. Slide it away from the hook so it's dislodged, and then do the same on the other side of the vehicle. Tug on that radiator a little bit and lift this up and out. Now let's reach up inside here. We're going to start removing the radiator. As you do so, be extremely careful for your hood release cable. Got a little bit of coolant in there still. Just let that drain. Now with this out of here, let's continue on to removing this. Just go ahead and grab onto it and pull it out of place. Got a little sticky pad on there. We can set this aside. It's important to make sure that you take a peek down along the bottom. It's common to find that you still have your rubber mounts located along this area. Have a look at both sides. If they're on there, go ahead and take them off of the radiator. And there it is, friends. Before you install your radiator, it's important to make sure you reinstall your rubber mounts. We'll double check on both sides to make sure they are in place. Now we can get ready to install the radiator. Make sure that the two little pins coming out the bottom of the radiator fit into those rubber mounts. Let's bring this down into place. Press that down into position. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's secured along the bottom. Now the next thing we want to do is start aligning the AC condenser with the radiator. The AC condenser along the bottom will have two tabs, one on each side that protrude out towards the side, and on the radiator, you remember that there was those small hooks along the bottom. Lift up on the AC condenser and align it with the hook on the radiator. Once you have one side aligned, do the same to the other side, and then you can press it down into the locked position. Now we'll continue on to our two mounting bolts. You remember as we had removed these, we had the 10mm on the passenger side of the vehicle and the 8mm headed bolt towards the driver's side of the vehicle. We'll start them in and snug them up. Double check to make sure everything's secure. Let's swing this up over here. Looking in the center, there's an area that goes around the AC condenser, and as you follow this up, there's a small hook that goes up and over the AC condenser. So we'll just try to get everything aligned. There we are. Get that little side hook in place as well. Now we can move up to the top. Align that push pin with a corresponding hole and press it in. Let's continue on to that foam piece across the top of the radiator. We'll get it aligned and slide it down into the proper placement. There we are. Now we can continue on to our two locking clips. What we need to do is put this in position over the tab along the top of the radiator. Slide it right in through the rubber hole here. You can wiggle the radiator around as needed. We'll do the same to the other side real quick. Now once you have both of those aligned, take hold of the radiator assembly and press it forward. What we're paying attention to is these two locking tabs. Make sure that they are both locked in position. Do the same on the other side. Now let's make our way to that lower radiator hose. Use your hose clamp pliers to squeeze the clamp, and then we'll put the hose in place on the radiator. Let's get that clamp properly aligned. Double check to make sure that the hose is secured to the radiator. Now that we have the hose on there, let's look just below it at that drain. We'll use our 19mm wrench to make sure that the drain plug is tight. Keep in mind, it is only plastic and we don't need to strip it. Right there feels as though it bottomed out. Just give it a little bit more. Now we can prepare to put in our cooling fan assembly. Before we slide it down in here, I want to show you along the radiator. On the rear of the radiator, you're going to have two hooks, one on either side. The one on the driver's side will be towards the center of the radiator, and the one over towards the passenger will be down along the bottom corner. On the fan itself, you have two tabs that protrude out. Those need to line up into those two hooks. Once you feel as though you have that in place, start in each of your 8mm headed mounting bolts, and then snug them up. Now after we have both of those bolts tight, let's make our way back up here and just lock this in position as well. Move along to the wiring harness. Along the driver's side, we'll start with the fan. Put this in position. Listen for a click. Give it a tug to make sure that's secure. Now we'll continue on with securing the rest of the wiring harness. Press that in. We can make our way around. There we go. Move up here. Now we can make our way up along here. The next two clips clip in along the top. We'll follow this wire once again down along the fan shroud, pressing it into position. As we make our way down, we'll also connect in the fan blade. Listen for a click, give it a tug. Just double check the wire to make sure it is still secured. It's possible that maybe it pops out of position. Now we can reattach that upper radiator hose to the radiator. Squeeze the clamp, slide the hose into position, release the clamp. Now that the upper hose is reattached, let's connect it in along the top of the fan. Now we can put in the lower air filter box. Looking at this, you can tell you have two tabs that protrude out from the bottom. And down inside the engine compartment, you'll have two rubber grommets for them to slide into. Let's get this aligned and slide it down into place. Start in each of those two mounting bolts, snug them up. Install the cover that goes over this area. On the bottom you have two tabs. They fit into their corresponding slots. Install your air filter. Now we can move along to the upper air filter housing and air inlet tube. When you go to install this, you want to make sure you have your three mounting tabs aligned with the corresponding slots in the lower housing. Now we'll align the air inlet tube with the throttle body. Bring this down into place. You want to make sure you press this all the way up against the throttle body and tighten that 8mm headed clamp so no dirty or unmetered air makes its way into the engine. Press the box down as far as you can and lock it in with your two locking tabs. Now we can reconnect the mass airflow sensor. Once you press it in, you want to make sure you lock it in with the red locking tab. Just go ahead and press that all the way inward. Feels like it's secure. I'll lock it in. Resecure the wiring harness to the corner of the air filter housing. Let's follow that air inlet tube, reconnect this line. Give it a click, give it a tug, make sure that's secure. We'll continue following it up. Reconnect this hose, press it in, make sure that's secure. Okay, let's put on our bumper cover. Carefully put this in place. Along the top, we're going to hold this in place with two of our push clips. To do this, we'll press in the outer aspect and then lock them in with the center. Now we can make our way towards each one of the fenders. We'll start on one side. Just going to press this right in. Listen for a click. Once you have the bumper cover pressed into place, start in all three of your 5.5mm mounting screws. Then snug them up. With all of those tight, we'll continue on with our push clip. Now that I've completed one side of the wheel well, we'll make our way over to the other side of the vehicle and do the same thing. Once you have your bumper covers secured to your fender liners, continue on underneath the vehicle. We're going to reconnect our fog lamp assemblies. Listen for a click, give it a tug. Do the same on both sides of the vehicle. Put in your push clips along the bottom of the bumper cover. All right, let's get ready to install that grille assembly on the vehicle. Take this and put it in position. Once you feel as though it's properly aligned, press it into place. Continue on with your two 10mm headed bolts that hold the grille assembly to the body of the vehicle. Now we can put on the forward trim piece. Keep in mind you have several push clips making their way across that need to fit into their corresponding slots on the vehicle. We'll get that aligned and press it in. Let's move along to the upper trim piece. Get that in position. On this, you'll find that you have two 10mm headed bolts, one on either side of it. Start those in and snug them up. Along the front, you'll have 8 of these 5.5mm mounting screws. Start them in. Snug them up. Now we can put in our last 2 push clips. Now we can make our way back over to that coolant reservoir. We're going to start filling the cooling system. If you were to look along the side of the reservoir area here, you'll find that you have a level. In the end, when this is full, you want to be someplace inside of this leveled area. So what we'll do is we'll use a funnel. We'll start adding some coolant. After you've added plenty of coolant inside of the reservoir, you're going to want to start up the vehicle, let it run for a little while, and get up to normal operating temperature. While it's running, pay attention in this area. As air is burping its way out, the coolant will be making its way down, so you will have to keep topping it off. It does not need to be filled all the way up to the top, only inside of that lined area. The coolant that you should use is Motorcraft's Specialty Orange Coolant. You can also use Universal Coolant if needed. Now, once you feel as though the vehicle is filled with coolant, go ahead and close up that cap on the coolant reservoir. Listen for a click so you know it's completely secure. At this point, you want to make sure you clean up your mess and take your vehicle for a road test. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.